This episode is brought to you by our friends at Betterman. You can check them out at betterman.com. That is betterman.com.
Hey, Jimmy.
Yeah, Kel?
Hey, Jimmy.
You're so good at these
I'm
intros.
so good at intros.
Yeah, keep going. This is great.
Hey, thanks for sharing your story last time.
Oh, thanks, Kel. This doesn't feel canned at all.
Enjoyed it. This
Wow.
is how I really feel. Okay.
Okay, great. I'm glad you liked it.
Cool.
Cool.
Okay, fine. You take over.
No, that's
Be crazy.
what a great intro. That was
Wow.
compelling. You had my attention.
Do you see it?
Oh, sorry.
I just get made fun of so much.
No, she's a wonderful person. She got you. You got so many other things going for you than your intros. That's the thing. You've got.
I have had some good intros. It's just few and far between.
It's words. Words are hard. Look, guys, cut her some slack, okay? Yeah, we got a thumbs up. It's all good.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Welcome back to Clearly.
Yes.
We're in the beginning throes of a new season.
Yes, season 6, where we're talking about God's more important than you.
Yeah. Didn't you want to tune in?
God's more important than me. And we're telling our stories about how we've come to see that truth that, man, God really is more important than me. And that's really good news.
Yeah.
So last time, if you are curious and didn't hear that episode, you can go back and listen to Jimmy share some kind of points in his journey with Jesus of how those truths came to be and how that was transformative.
Yeah, where that came on, yeah.
Which I really enjoyed.
And today, we are turning the tables. The tables?
Speaking of words being hard.
My, how the turntables. We are I'm going to interview you right in your face.
Okay, great.
Yep. I'm going to interview you just good.
Keep the jokes to a minimum.
I want to find out. I want to know everything. Actually, if I find out stuff I didn't already know.
Well, I found out something new about you last time.
That's because I try not to share my feelings in our marriage. Wow, this is going great. We've got a great marriage. Kelly, so today the big question is, what were the signposts, the checkpoints along your journey that moment happened for you where you're like, oh, he's really big. Oh, he's more at the center of things than I thought. Oh, he's more important than me. Mm-hmm. Get us started. How did that journey happen?
Right.
Ready, go.
Well, I don't know exactly when my heart first trusted Jesus. My best guess is somewhere in my junior high years. And so I started walking with Jesus in the awkward junior high season of my life. And like you said in the last episode, even as we start our journey with Jesus, we're still very self-centered most of the time. And the biggest shift came for me in college, similar to you. Well, yours was high school, but anyway. In college, I'm a freshman in college, and what is every college girl, at least in my era of college life, thinking about? This is probably where I'm going to meet my husband. And we're thinking about marriage, and we're thinking about future. And, I felt a unique conviction from the Lord in my first year of college that area of my life was unsurrendered to him. And so I felt this prompting of, hey, you ought not be at the center of your love life. And
did you think those words ought not? Are you also, follow-up question, are you also from the 1800s?
That was
sorry,
great.
Keep going. No,
I said keep the jokes to a minimum.
No.
Come on, no.
Thou art doing great. Here we go.
I remember having this moment of realization that brothers in Christ that I knew in my life at that time were really like in categories. Yes, no, maybe, it sounds terrible, but I really was. And so many women, I don't know how many people today feel like they resonate with this because I feel like there's more of a glorification of singleness than there is of marriage in some ways culturally. But at the time, there very much was a you had your, and since I was a little kid, we did the little things as with our friends. It was like, who are you going to marry? When are you going to get married? How many kids are you going to have? We were daydreaming about this future family life. And here I felt this kind of prompting from the Lord to lay it down. And that felt very scary. It felt, I've told people since then, even as I go back and read my journal entries from that time, that it felt like God asking me, will you let me be in charge of that? I'll arrange your marriage for you. It's like, that sounds like a terrible idea to not have control over that part of my life and to essentially hand off something that feels very personal and for my personal fulfillment to God and his glory. If I get married, if I don't, my singleness or my marriage, and to who I get married and when is ultimately to be for you, God, and your glory. Was like, excuse me? Yeah. No, thank you. Yeah. That's really what was happening in my heart. I remember it feeling like holding on to future dreams with closed fists and God saying, would you please let him go? And would you trust me? And it was like, that feels scary because what if I'm single forever? Or what if I, get married to somebody that...
To some musician. Could you imagine if that happened?
Who makes fun of me on a podcast.
Gross.
No, but it really was a big moment for me in my walk with him. And I remember having this moment in my little apartment that I shared with a friend in college. I was on my knees in our bedroom that we shared. She was out and had my journal open and I was just praying. And I just remember it was probably several weeks of wrestling with that and laying different elements of that down at his feet and going, all right, Lord, it's yours. This area of my life is yours. I don't know what that means. I feel legitimately scared about what that might mean for my future, but I'm laying it at your feet and saying, this area of my life exists for your glory, as does every other area. And so you tell me what to do from here. But until you make it clear to me what to do, I'm not going to think about it anymore. I'm not going to over-obsess. I'm not going to manipulate situations to get in the conversations with the people I want to maybe see, what's going to happen. I'm just laying it at your feet. And the profound joy that followed that, not in that day, but weeks that followed, I mean, it was like, I just remember relief, peace, and joy. I think it was that sense of I'm the center of my life in this area and I've dethroned myself. And that was a really scary transition. But once I got properly placed in like, I'm not the center here, he is, joy began to manifest in my life in a really significant way. And this was all before I met you. Yeah. So it's interesting to talk about now with you, who we are married, because what happened after that is I met you very shortly after that. And I'll tell a little bit of that story because I want to get into the first year of our marriage, which was actually very difficult, and how this truth helped in that moment.
Yep.
But we were friends at the time, and I think we both were on similar journeys of Jesus is more important than me. And that's why we connected in the first place and why we became friends in the first place. And I had really set aside that area of my life. And so I was not thinking about dating at all. And I was like, the Lord's going to make it clear to me if I am ever to be married. I think at that point I'd assumed I'd probably be single for a really long time. And so when you asked me to start dating you, it caught me off guard. I was like, oh, I wasn't prepared for this. And I remember thinking, Jesus, you got to tell me what you want me to do because I don't know. I told you this is your area. And so as you were talking to me about wanting to date me, I was praying. And I had in the best way I know at the time in my walk with Jesus, it was like I had a clear sense of this is who I want you to walk with. I want you to walk with this man. And I was not thinking, I hope this is okay that I'm telling this part of the story.
Please. I'm all ears.
I was so not in a headspace of like, who do I like and who am I dating, that I came home and told my roommate that I said yes to dating you. Jimmy and I are dating. And her response was, do you even like him? I've never heard you talk about him. And I was like, I mean.
It's interesting. What's your next point? No.
You know this.
To be fair, okay. I wasn't exactly a looker in those days. Show the picture. Anyway. But I do love that you did have to pray to your Father in heaven to figure out if you should even consider this person. I was so caught off guard.
I was not thinking about it. Anyway, and obviously, best decision of my life, babe.
Nailed it.
Obviously. But here's what's interesting is we had a great experience dating and engagement and all of that. And then we got married. And for those of you who've maybe read some of my books or followed me or any of my blogs over the years know that those first few months and first few years of marriage were very, very difficult. God exposed so much in me through our marriage, and it was such a gift to me. He exposed so much pride in my heart. it caught me off guard. And I remember in that season looking back and going, God, I have a journal entry. I was like, God, you orchestrated this. You asked me to surrender this part of my life to you. And I did. And you guided me very clearly. And the reason our marriage was hard was largely due to the circumstances surrounding your music career. It had nothing to do with you. It had nothing to do with how you were treating me. It had to do with the unique path God had you on and what my role was in that. And I did not like my circumstances anymore. I felt like this is too hard for me. It doesn't feel fair. And really what was happening is sin is being exposed to me that's been lying dormant for years. And it was hard for me to see in myself. But what held me in that moment was I was single for God. I'm married for God. This marriage is not about me and what I want, what I want to feel, what's good for me. This is about the glory of God. And I'm okay with that. And it was really even that same truth that helped usher me out of a place of really living in my pride and digging my feet into repentance and to humility and to a willingness to say, God, if this is what you have for me, is to come alongside this ministry entrusting to my husband, then amen. Because I don't exist for me and my marriage doesn't exist for me. It exists for you. And that was really, that whole season really involving my relationship, all the marriage relationship, single to married, was all me learning this all exists for him. And that was very foreign concept. I even remember hearing a podcast at the time that was a group of women talking about marriage because I was just desperate to learn at that point because I was like, this is so hard. And we were married at 20. So none of my friends are married. They just think it's awesome that I am married and I'm really struggling. And so I'm listening to this podcast. And I remember listening to this woman talking about, no, you love your husband for the sake of Christ. And it was like, what? That's crazy to me. That was a new thought. You serve him for the sake of Jesus, not for his sake, for the Lord's sake, because this relationship exists to point to him, not for your benefit or for his. It is for the Lord. And again, that elevating of Jesus in my relationship that felt very personal was a game changer.
This episode is brought to you by our friends at Better Man. So in the 1970s, it was, I don't need a man. In the 1990s, it was, I don't want a man. And today, the question is, what is a man? And Better Man is answering that question. Better Man is a free resource for churches and men's groups, fathers, brothers, husbands, and it's helping men to be the man that God has called them to be. It's built around the 4 W's. Better Man teaches that a real man courageously follows God's word. A real man loves and protects God's woman. A real man excels at God's work. That a real man betters God's world. So check them out and get everything you need to start your journey toward better at betterman.com. That's betterman.com. One observation of what you shared so far, it's interesting to listen to your story so far and mine, because mine was very, I was confronted with some intellectual truths that upended me and eventually spilled over into decision-making, living, but all yours so far have been very experiential. You did a thing.
Right.
And you were kind of walking out this truth that I don't exist for me, my marriage doesn't exist for me. You were doing it and feeling the ramifications of it. I don't know, I'm just noting that because I think it's beautiful, and very much you, I'm going to risk something for Jesus. I'm going to believe that I've got an inkling of an idea about this thing. I'm taking a step, and it's just interesting so far that all of this is just, I did this thing. I took this step, and this is what I experienced.
Yeah.
And then the Lord thundered in the background. Did you hear that?
I don't know if they can hear that. It's rain and thunder here. Yeah, that was pit stop number 1. That was waypoint number 1 in my journey of Jesus becoming more important than me and me sinking into a secondary place and seeing that produce fruit. Yeah. That was really big. I would say a second thing, and this is again why we're so similar and why we're so passionate about this, is reading parts of the Old Testament, particularly the prophets. I love the prophetic books in the Old Testament. They're my favorite. they're some of my all-time favorites. So all of the Old Testament prophetic books, but when I was very first reading through them, not just to check it off a list, I had a season of reading the Bible where I remember thinking, it was right after I got the New Inductive Study Bible, which is a fave. It's so great. And at the beginning of each chapter, it gives you a space to write the theme for you to try and internalize what is this chapter about so that I can try and write what would I say the theme is. And I was realizing through using this Bible, I am totally just reading through chapters, not really comprehending any of it and moving on, because when I'm asked to write a theme, I'm like, what did I read? I don't know. So I was slowly making my way through this Bible, and I came to the prophetic books and going, okay, I don't want to move on from a chapter until I have some understanding of what this actually says.
Are you guys hearing that?
Can you guys hear that in the
Did
background?
anyone hear the thunder?
I don't think they can.
I feel like Garth Brooks needs to start singing.
Okay.
That was awesome.
You probably can hear Elizabeth Fisher.
Sorry.
Here.
You know what we'll do? We'll insert it in post. We'll insert a thunder effect. And so that way this comment will make more sense. Okay, great.
Anyway, reading through the prophetic books, they're so offensive to human sensibilities. They really are. I mean, there are some really hard to read things in the prophetic books in the Old Testament. It is confronting all sorts of things we feel about God. So it's doing that. Secondly, so it's challenging my view of God. But secondly, at the time, as I'm reading those, it's showing the heart of God. Yeah. It's very personal. It's very, it is God pulling back the curtain to say, I'd like to let you know how I feel right now. Mm-hmm. I'd like to let you know how I feel about people.
Yeah.
And that was life-changing for me to really sit in that and go, one, God has feelings. Yeah. He's a person.
Yeah.
Which, of course, we know, right? We know here. But so often we treat him as a system. Or, like we talked about in the last episode, somebody who exists only to serve me and make my life better. You know, if I treated any human being in my life that way, that they exist solely to serve me, that person would not be my friend for very long.
Yep.
They wouldn't. We treat human beings better than we treat God. I mean, I was realizing all these things as I'm reading this. I would never expect that from another person, a friend in my life.
Yeah.
I wouldn't just expect them to serve me. I would hope that I'm coming to them going, I want to get to know you. What do you care about? How can I listen? How can I learn who you are? And I was realizing I've not really done that with God. And so the prophetic books ushered me into a deeper relationship with God and a willingness to receive him as he is, to learn his emotional life. And that was, again, very challenging to me because I was relating to a lot of what I was reading, not in a good way. Like, oh, I am like these people who forget you, who don't care, who use you, who give you lip service, who say I love you, and then I do something else. So it confronted me and invited me into deeper relationship. I began to see those books as an invitation from God, where I feel like he was saying, come get to know me.
Yeah.
And it was life altering. So that would be the second moment for me.
One thing we say a lot now is, whenever we're dealing with something with someone else, or whenever we're giving counsel to people, we say something like, your first sympathies should be with the Lord. Mm-hmm. And that for us has been really orienting. Like, it helped us kind of like get our feet fixed on firm ground. Like, before I am feeling a thing for anyone, I want to feel it on behalf of God.
Right.
How does this thing, this attitude, that comment, those behaviors, my flesh, my whatever, how does it, before anything, how does it make God feel? Like, how does it hit God? And I think you're right. The prophets allow us to see behind the curtain, to go, oh, you have a really vibrant emotional life.
Yes.
You are not a
that
system.
You're not embarrassed by either.
Yeah.
That you're inviting us into.
And I want to be, gosh, I mean, like, if I'm really saying you're my favorite person in the universe, I want to be in your corner before I'm in anybody else's corner.
Right.
And it's amazing how just like that sorts out so much of the confusion of living. Yeah.
Yeah. So
what else? Another waypoint? Checkpoint?
Yeah. So I would say another one is actually, another big one for me is also has to do with Bible study. I had a moment soon after we moved into this house. So we, it's around 2011, 2012. I think maybe our second daughter was born. So I've got 2 kids in diapers and you're touring a lot. And it was a difficult season. And I remember I was in the Gospels in my Bible reading, and I decided to study the Pharisees. I know exactly why the Lord put that on my heart.
She's a special gal. I'm just saying, not many people are getting out of bed going, I can't wait to think about some Caiaphas, some Nicodemus.
I'm just saying they're a huge part of Jesus's ministry, public ministry, and they are not his friend if you've read the New Testament. And I just remember going, I think I'm maybe like them a little bit, but I don't know. I'm just going to study them. I'm going to read through Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and every time the Pharisees come up, I'm going to keep a journal, and I'm going to write down what I learn. I highly recommend doing this. And I also would give you a warning, as you do, prepare to be convicted. Because as I'm making this list, I remember I'm on the floor in the living room and the kids are little, they're crawling around and I'm reading and making notes. And I had this moment of reading something I wrote. It said, Jesus is speaking to the Pharisees and says at one point, you are those who justify themselves before men. That you want to make sure other people know that you're right. And I wrote it down and I was like, this is me. And I had looked at like 3 or 4 others in my list and just had this moment of, I am just like them. I am just like these Pharisees. That these are the people who are most, the biggest obstacle to you, that were the most adversarial toward you. Mm-hmm. That's who I resonate with. Cool.
Dang.
Great. I mean, it was I think because I grew up in church, because I had a relationship with Jesus when I was young, because I was a leader in youth group, because I had all these things that really had cultivated in me a sense of, I'm really good at this Christian thing. I'm a good Christian. People look up to me, and here I am reading going, I'm terrible. I use religion to bolster myself just like them. Wow. So I'm having this moment, and it did feel very loving. I don't know if that makes sense, but it felt very invitational from the Lord to leave that behind. As I'm doing that, I'm also reading the Gospels, or I'm reading about Jesus. And I remember having these moments of realization as I'm seeing myself in the story as the bad guy. I'm seeing Jesus go to the cross and not justify himself before men and give up every one of his rights and die as a criminal doing nothing wrong. I was like, Jesus, you are so much better than me. You are so much better than me. I love me. I use you to do things for me. I mean, I think the lowering of myself, of seeing myself rightly, but yet seeing how much he loves me and how much truly better he is. I mean, he is so much more humble, so much more grace-filled, so much more just everything than me. And so I already was learning, I think, this movement toward Jesus ought to be at the center of my life. I ought to not be. But there was still probably part of me that was like, I'd really like to be in the center. I wasn't happy about it all the time. And here, this was a really beautiful moment to go, no, he deserves the center.
Yeah.
He absolutely deserves the center. He better get to be the center of my life, because I've never met a man so good as that. And then even going back to those prophetic books and going, I'm reading Isaiah 53. It's like, that should bother me. The one innocent man in the world treated unfairly for my sake. Somebody who is so manipulative in the way that I can use my Christianity. Yes, he ought to get first place. I am happy. I think it created a happiness about it. Not just it's as it should be. I should be not the center, but I'm happy about this arrangement. It is right. Fitting. It is fitting. It is good. It is lovely. I want more of it. How much further away from the middle can I get, and how much more can I make him the center? It just, it was a really, again, a season full of joy. I think each one of these moments for me feel very like those moments where it's like life got better. Things came into alignment. It didn't mean suffering wasn't present. Again, I haven't shared a lot of that. There's a lot of suffering weaved through all of these seasons, but these are the moments where it was like, okay, yes.
Yeah.
This is as it should be. Things are better.
That's so good.
Yeah.
I love your story. And I think the word fitting is very fitting for how this should leave us, And again, this is this is the aim. This is going to be the aim of and focus of this season.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really what we do anyways, like when we study the Bible together. But what we are saying, and I think what your story helps highlight is, the appropriate place for us, if he really is as good as he reveals himself to be in his word and shows himself to be in our lives, if he really is as big and as sovereign and as mighty and as providential as I experienced him in those moments in my life, like if all of those things are true, then the appropriate place for us is not on the throne.
Mm-hmm.
The appropriate place for us is on our hands and knees before the throne of God. And this is where our God is trying to get all of us to, and we're eager to help all of us along the way by exposing these truths to our hearts in the Word. So I'm pumped about this season, because I think we're
going to explore
it's going to be fitting.
How this truth does bring clarity to a whole host of other arenas of our life. And how we've seen that. So, and where we see it in the Word. So, yeah.
Love it.
Jimmy, let's be honest, was it weird that I told some of our dating story? Did I make you feel bad? Because I was...
Because you said you just weren't that into me, but you said yes anyways? I mean, that's really our story, isn't it?
I was really into you. As a friend.
And all the guys out there just went, oh.
Hey, but it gives them hope, right?
Hurts so good. Here's a true story, and I don't want to make this long, but I went to your house a day or two after I asked you to start dating me. I knocked on her door, and I said, hey, I'm actually just here because I need you to tell me again that we're dating, because I don't believe it. And guys, I wasn't like a line. I wasn't trying to be cute. I genuinely went to her apartment because I was like, did that really happen? And so I had to have her say it again. That's how pathetic I am.
Stop.
I hope you like the episode, though. What can they do? You know what? We would love for you to subscribe to the podcast and get it kind of at the top of your feed. You get to see all these episodes when they come out. So be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, smash it.
Please don't say that again.
You can
join our email list. Get more resources connected to these episodes.
Yeah, we give great content. We give monthly newsletters, all that kind of stuff. You can do that at jimmyandkelly.com at the bottom of the page.
And help be a part of the making of these episodes.
Yes, if you want to help us continue to make this good Jesus is the best thing in the world content, we would love for you to do that. You can go to jimmyandkelly.com/donate. And for really as little as like $5 a month, you can help grease the wheels, make this thing happen, and you get to be a part of the episodes live. So if that sounds cool, do it.
Yep. Where are we going next time? Where are we going for the rest of the season?
The rest of the season, we're going to take this truth that God is more important than you, than me, than all of us. Yeah. That he's the center of the universe. And we're going to just start applying it to life. Like, okay, that's cool, but like, how does that change my dating or marriage? Or how does that change what evangelism looks like? How does that change parenting? How does it, like, my job, employment, work? Like, how does that change everything? Let's put it on practical things. That's what we're going to do for the rest of the season, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah. If you have a question, by the way, an area of life that you're like, I would really love to hear more about this in this area, send us an email at question@clearlypodcast.com, and we'll try to tackle it in this season.
All right.
We'll see you next week.
Cheers.